Alright, hope you guys enjoyed the new intro. It's an amazing song that I just recently discovered. Link will be in the description. And while we're discussing links in the description, the links to the first 2 episodes of this series will also be in the description. This is the 3rd brand booking series, and this is episode number 3, and this will cover the 2nd month. And by month with this series, my months aren't actual like 30 to 31 days calendar month. They're more along the lines of in between pay-per-views. So the first episode was the night after TLC, the second episode was TLC to Royal Rumble, and I do want to address a mistake that I made in the last video. In the last video, I only acknowledged 4 weeks being in between TLC and the Royal Rumble, but that was a mistake because there are actually 5 weeks. So just in order to make up for that, I'm going to go ahead and rebook the 4th week after TLC. It would have been the January 17th episode of Ascension, as well as add in a little bit for the 24th of January episode of Ascension, which would basically have been the go-home show, which I thought was the 17th because, like I said, I screwed up. So for the January 17th episode, which I originally had featuring the 4th and 5th Fatal 4-Way matches, I'm going to change that. And the very first thing that we're going to have that night is a backstage segment between Sheamus and Drew McIntyre, where Drew McIntyre just beats down Sheamus. He picks out a body part and he just destroys it. This is just kind of furthering their little mini feud that they've been going on with. Sheamus beat Drew McIntyre the week before, so now Drew McIntyre wants revenge. We're going to basically build Drew McIntyre up as this loose cannon that'll just beat people down for no reason at all, really. I mean, he's a bad winner, he's a bad loser, he just gets angry and beats people up, and he can because he's a big guy and he has that look and he has that intimidating presence about him. So, of course, Drew beats down Sheamus, and then we seamlessly move into our 4th Fatal 4-Way match, the one that Antonio Cesaro comes out on top of. I discussed how I would book the in-ring action and all that kind of stuff in the last episode, so if you're curious, check it out. We're going to go ahead and move on. The main event of the evening would be Sheamus versus Drew McIntyre, and because Sheamus is selling an injury, Drew McIntyre is going to pick that out and win due to that. So Drew McIntyre defeats Sheamus. They are 1-1 now, which means that the January 24th episode, the main event of the evening, will be a rubber match. So we're basically, the January 24th episode, we're going to get the 5th Fatal 4-Way where DiBiase wins, and then Sheamus versus Drew McIntyre in a rubber match in which Sheamus would win. So Sheamus goes into the Royal Rumble with tons of momentum, which means it makes even more sense that he won the Rumble in hindsight. Of course, I wouldn't change that. I wouldn't be like, oh, Sheamus can't win the Rumble now because he's on Ascension. No, that's silly. I'm just going to go with the flow. Sheamus wins the Rumble. That makes Ascension looks great because we have the Royal Rumble winner on our TV show, on our roster. So then we have the 5-Way, of course, at the Royal Rumble as well, where Ziggler and DiBiase both come out on top, and they will go one-on-one at the Elimination Chamber. As far as the build for Elimination Chamber goes, that's what this video is for. First episode of Ascension after Rumble is January 23rd, and the first thing that we see tonight is the Sheamus promo. Of course, we have to let Sheamus cut a promo because he won the Royal Rumble and he didn't get that much of a featured spot on Raw. So this is where we give the guys that don't get a chance to get featured on other shows a chance to get featured. Sheamus cuts a promo talking about the Royal Rumble, and who does he get interrupted by? Certainly not by Drew McIntyre. He proved that he's better than him already. Sheamus is interrupted by none other than Mr. Antonio Cesaro. That's right, Claudio Castagnoli from the Indies. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with him, if not all of you. And I'll tell you what, there isn't necessarily a top heel unless you count Dolph Ziggler right now, but Cesaro is definitely going to be the guy that we build to fill those shoes. So Cesaro comes in and cuts a promo on Sheamus, basically saying that he is a disgrace to European wrestlers because he's pandering to the fans, and basically just saying, oh, Sheamus, you're a piece of crap because you're a babyface. It's as simple as that. Gotta love heel psychology. Cesaro can work a mic very well, so he can cut this promo. I don't want to act like I'm actually scripting this in real life, but if I was in control of this brand, this would be one of the few unscripted promos because these two guys are good enough to hold their own without a script. They'd get their bullet points, they'd get their points across, and this would be an amazing segment. To move on from that, we would have kind of a random thrown together match between Kofi Kingston and Drew McIntyre. And again, like I said, we're trying to build McIntyre as this crazy loose cannon kind of guy that'll just beat you up for no reason. Kofi beats McIntyre with a Trouble in Paradise to the head, and then Drew McIntyre loses his mind and tries to beat Kofi Kingston up, only for Kofi to be saved by Alex Riley. And I know this is kind of random, but the point isn't necessarily to create a team between Riley and Kofi, it's more to create a feud between Riley and Drew. As far as a motive would be for Riley saving Kofi Kingston, it's really simple. He's sick of seeing Drew McIntyre bully people, and he wants it to end. So that's kind of the simple basis that we're judging this one on. The main event of the evening, we're going to have Dolph Ziggler and Ted DiBiase in a cross promo where we establish, using, of course, William Regal being the general manager of Ascension, that for the next 2 weeks, Dolph Ziggler and Ted DiBiase are going to pick each other's poisons, and we have our 2 remaining main events set leading up to Elimination Chamber. Next week, we're going to have Dolph Ziggler versus whoever Ted DiBiase picks, and the following week, the go-home show for the Elimination Chamber, we're going to have Ted DiBiase versus whoever Dolph Ziggler picks. So, 3 very solid segments here, and the way I'm breaking this down, basically I'm trying to fit 3 10 to 15 minute segments per episode, because it would only be an hour, and on top of that, you got to include commercials, and on top of that, because the WWE hates their third brand so much, you would have to include tons and tons and tons of ridiculous, just absurd, superfluous amounts of recaps from Raw and SmackDown the week before, and of course any kind of hype for pay-per-view. Basically, you see what it's like with NXT now. All they do is they have a few short segments, and the rest of it is all just hype and build-up for the upcoming pay-per-view. So I'm not saying that that's what I would want Ascension to be, but if that's what the WWE wants to use their third brand for, there's nothing I can do about it. So this is just me trying to compensate for that and coming up with what I can with the 30 to 45 minutes that I have available to me in the hour-long show. The following week, February 7th episode of Ascension. First segment of the night, we have Dolph Ziggler and Ted DiBiase in another cross promo. DiBiase reveals that his poison for Dolph Ziggler is none other than Derek Bateman. And there are a few reasons that I'm having DiBiase pick Bateman here. The first reason is that Bateman's really the only guy on the entire roster that Dolph Ziggler has any kind of history with whatsoever. And the only history they have is that in NXT Season 4, Derek Bateman called Dolph Ziggler out and said that he legally changed his name from Turd Ferguson. Chris Masters got a turd chant started. It was really ridiculous, but regardless, it gives them something to build on at least. It's better than nothing, basically. And Derek Bateman is an extremely gifted, athletic, great, just an all-around amazing performer. He has the charisma. He has the athleticism. He's good as far as a technical wrestling standpoint goes. He's just got it all. The only thing that he's really lacking as far as the WWE is concerned with is his 6'5" frame. So I will definitely be pushing Derek Bateman as a babyface on this brand. He's too talented as a babyface to be a heel, and when he is a heel, it's just awkward. I hate to say it like that, but Derek Bateman is just awkward as a heel. He's much better as a face. He gets the crowd behind him. He gets internet marks behind him. He gets women behind him. He gets everyone behind him. He's a very, very good babyface, so he's going to be the big pick your poison for Dolph Ziggler. To move on, we have Sheamus versus Tyler Rex, and the reason I'm doing this is because Tyler Rex is pretty much the only heel jobber that we have, and he makes Sheamus look great. Sheamus pretty much annihilates Tyler Rex. Antonio Cesaro attempts to interfere to cost Sheamus the match, because let's face it, what would be more embarrassing for Sheamus than losing to Tyler Rex? Not a whole lot. So of course, Sheamus, despite the interference, does win. He beats Tyler Rex, and then he and Cesaro have a stare down before we move on to the main event of the evening, Dolph Ziggler versus Derek Bateman. And this would be a great one-on-one match, very competitive. I'd probably give this as much time as I possibly could, up to like 15 minutes. If it was possible, I'd give this segment 15 minutes, maybe even 20, I don't know. Bateman would take Ziggler, basically he would take him to the edge. He would get him, everyone would be shocked that Ziggler isn't just putting Bateman away, and everyone would be amazed that Derek Bateman's lasting this long with Dolph Ziggler and that kind of stuff. And Ziggler's cutting all these promos talking about how he is the A brand, he deserves to be on Raw and all this kind of crap, and here he is almost getting shown up by somebody that wasn't even on Raw before Ascension showed up. Of course, Ziggler will win, but like I said, it'll be a nice one-on-one, well-fought match. And then we have our final show, the go-home show for the Elimination Chamber, February 14th. And this is, I do believe this is the only show so far that has 3 matches on it. First match, Drew McIntyre versus Alex Riley. This is kind of carried over from 2 weeks ago when Kofi Kingston beat Drew McIntyre, and McIntyre went for the beatdown on Kofi, and Alex Riley saved him. So we have kind of a relapse here where McIntyre is trying to get his revenge on Alex Riley. I would have Riley win, but I would have Drew McIntyre beat the living crap out of Alex Riley afterwards. And I'm not talking about just, you know, he hits his finisher on him in the middle of the ring and then leaves. No, he's going to destroy him. Think Alex Riley turning on The Miz. That kind of beatdown is that level of a beatdown. He's going to destroy him. He's going to put Alex Riley out of business for a few weeks just so that we can give Alex Riley that big return moment, most likely while Drew's beating somebody down in the future. So that's our first match of the night. Second match of the night, Antonio Cesaro one-on-one with Ezekiel Jackson. It's another another one of those matches that has very little history, but it does have history nonetheless, and its history is actually based in Ascension. In the fourth Fatal 4-Way match that we had Antonio Cesaro and Ezekiel Jackson being the final two. Cesaro and Zeke had a little bit of a power struggle, and Cesaro got the better of Zeke. I would have something similar happen here, but I would have Cesaro look much more dominant. Basically, we could play it off like in the Fatal 4-Way, Cesaro got gassed a little bit more because he did all of the work eliminating the other two guys, and Zeke didn't really do anything. Whereas in this match, they're both fresh, so Cesaro gets the upper hand quicker. Cesaro wins fairly convincingly. I would probably have Sheamus on commentary for this match, just to kind of put over the little feud, the little mini feud that they're having. So we have Cesaro coming out on top of Zeke, and then the main event of the evening, Ted DiBiase one-on-one with a guy that Ziggler, I would have had mentioned earlier in the night, was happy to come down to Ascension from one of the other brands to do his bidding for him. Cody Rhodes. And we're going to have Cody Rhodes come out, and he's going to get on the mic for a minute or two and just say that he was more than happy to do his buddy Dolph Ziggler a favor and come down here and basically put his foot on the throat of Ted DiBiase and keep him on the third brand where he belongs. So these guys have a great one-on-one match. Another example of a match that I would give as much time as possible, just like I would have last week to Ziggler and Bateman. However, in this one, I would have Cody Rhodes win. Now, here's the thing. I wouldn't have Cody Rhodes win convincingly, and I would actually have Cody Rhodes win by cheating, whether it was grabbing the tights, or with his feet up on the ropes for leverage, or with a finger poke to the eye that the ref didn't see, or a low blow, or something simple like that that a heel would use to win. So while Ted DiBiase is getting pinned and looking a little bit weaker, he isn't getting pinned in a clean fashion. He isn't losing credibility. He's getting pinned by being cheated out of a win. We go into Elimination Chamber with Ted DiBiase, despite having lost, and Dolph Ziggler, despite having won, looking very, very, very much on the same level. We brought Ziggler down a peg or two by having him look basically like he was truly challenged by Derek Bateman, who has been stuck on NXT for how long I can remember. And Ted DiBiase only got pinned by the Intercontinental Champion because the champion had to use a cheating or a heel tactic in order to beat him. So they look like they are very, very similar as far as what level they're on, how much prestige they have. You know, the legitimacy to these guys looks very even. So at the Elimination Chamber, I only see 3 matches that are currently planned for the Chamber. Cena, Kane, and the 2 Chamber matches themselves, and maybe throw in the Divas title match that's set between Tamina and Beth Phoenix. So it looks to me like they have plenty of room to add a couple more matches here. So we're going to add Antonio Cesaro one-on-one with Sheamus, and we're also going to, of course, have our big title match between Ted DiBiase and Dolph Ziggler. Now, as far as the winner of this match goes, a lot of you might be surprised because I'm not going to have Ziggler win this. I'm going to have Ted DiBiase become the first ever Ascension World Champion. And here's my reasoning. First of all, Dolph Ziggler deserves better than to be stuck on the third brand, despite the fact that he will be competing on Raw. Second of all, Ted DiBiase deserves something. He has gotten nothing. He's never won a singles title in his WWE career. And third of all, honestly, I think that Dolph Ziggler is going to end up getting a featured WrestleMania match, most likely with a guy like Mick Foley, so he needs to have a lot more time to devote to Raw. And if he is the Ascension Champion, he's going to basically be kind of stuck in Ascension, and I'm not trying to make Ascension seem any less prestigious or anything like that, but the fact of the matter is, whether I like it or not, the WWE would treat their third brand like a C show. It would basically be a developmental territory for the developmental territory that plays on TV on Fridays for the main show, which is Raw. So we're going to have DiBiase win the Ascension World title here, and he is going to hold the title for, you know what, I'm not even going to reveal that. I'm going to let you guys anticipate when DiBiase is going to lose the title. Ted DiBiase is your Ascension World Champion. Antonio Cesaro loses to Sheamus in a very, very, very hard-fought one-on-one, even keel match. We're going to use Sheamus's momentum as the Royal Rumble winner to make Cesaro look like $1 million, despite the fact that obviously Sheamus will win, because we're not going to let him lose to basically an unestablished name in Cesaro. So we have, coming out of here, we have a top babyface in Ted DiBiase. We have a top heel in Dolph Ziggler, and we have a top up-and-coming heel in Antonio Cesaro. So, of course, DiBiase, Ziggler, Cesaro, that makes for a great triangle. It's always better to have more heels at the top than baby faces. It makes the baby faces look better. If you don't believe me, you can go ahead and check out my blog. One of my first couple posts, I point out that the WWE likes to have far fewer baby faces than heels, and I actually came up with a 4 baby face rule that I don't even know if it's all that relevant today or not, but it was relevant for a while in the middle of the year. Check out the blog, check out Twitter, TwitWow. And finally, the big commentary coming up between the Four Horsemen. February 25th, that's right, 225 adds up to 50. The 50 greatest superstars of all time. According to us, everybody knows the WWE's list was a joke. No top superstars of all time list can be taken seriously if Hulk Hogan isn't in the top 5. And that's me being legitimate, not me trying to be some kind of an overly biased jerk who thinks that somebody with a different opinion than mine doesn't matter. That's not it at all. If you look at the facts and you look at the actual accomplishments and everything that is statistically measurable, Hulk Hogan is one of the top 3 or 4 greatest wrestlers of all time. Regardless of that, top 50 greatest superstars of all time with the Four Horsemen, my boys Alex, Preston, and John. Be looking out for it. Again, 225. Got to do the multiplication there, 50. That's about it for me, guys. Be sure to continue watching. We're going to keep on doing the TwitWow Lost Files. I really like that idea because you get to kind of check out TwitWow, kind of behind the scenes and the stuff that gets cut and doesn't make the final hour show. Be sure to listen into TwitWow this coming Friday, free on iTunes. I'm going to be making a TwitWow t-shirt that basically just has John from Beer Money 2K's catchphrase on it, which is, I pay it forward. And that's about